You know the general election is here, politicians are coming thick and fast, and this week the Liberal Democrats are out here in Lancashire. Please, I'm joined by the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Nick Clegg, MP. Nick, a very warm welcome to Ummah Channel.
It's great
Good to have you on. Let's start with international affairs. The Lib Dems stood last time in 2005 on an anti-war platform against the war in Iraq. You spoke passionately last year against the occupation of Gaza, the Darfur crisis. What does the Liberal Democrat foreign policy look like for voters?
Well, first, it's based on some very strong values. Human rights, the rule of law, protecting the weak from abuse by the strong. And that's why, yes, we have been unique in British politics. We were the only party in Westminster to say no to the illegal invasion of Iraq. We were the only party last year to speak up about the terrible humanitarian consequences of the disproportionate use of force by the Israeli military in Gaza. The only party to consistently speak up in favour of human rights across the world. And so what will guide us is what has always guided us, which is a belief in the rule of law, and a belief of human rights, and a belief that a safe world is a world where there are rules which are as binding on the strong as they are on the weak.
Okay, but on Afghanistan, you've been there, you visited there several times, and in your conference speech last year you said that you've got one final chance to get it right. What happens if it fails?
Well, I think if it fails, the consequences are potentially very severe. There's no doubt in my mind that the Taliban, who espouse a sort of medieval ideology, it's anti-democratic, it's verging on the misogynist, deeply oppressive towards women, and a Taliban-run Afghanistan would, in no doubt, in my view, become a platform for the launching of terrorist attacks elsewhere, not only in the West, by the way, but in the region too, and be very, very destabilising on Pakistan and on other countries in the region. So I think we all have an interest in seeing a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. The problem is, of course, that the international community, including the United Kingdom, have pursued such a very, very bad strategy over the last 8 years, have been thinking that this conflict can be won by military means alone, when it can't only be won by military means. You have to win people's hearts and minds. You have to engage, in my view, with some elements of the Taliban as well.
Military campaign.
Well, you know, it's a nonsense, the idea that you could somehow create from the rubble of Afghanistan a stable society through military force alone, particularly when that military force wasn't properly equipped, wasn't properly resourced, and when most of the attention was being diverted to this illegal invasion of Iraq. So I think we made some very, very serious mistakes over the last 8 years, which is why I've been speaking out as critically as I have of the strategy. Now a new strategy is going to be tried out. There is no guarantee that it will succeed, but yes, I do think we need to give it some time in order to see that it might succeed.
So there won't be a time before the election that the Liberal Democrats will call for withdrawal of British troops?
Well, we'll constantly ask the difficult questions. We'll constantly, as an opposition party, scrutinise what our troops are doing there, what our government is doing. But I doubt very much that between now and the general election, I don't think it would be right in that short period of time to judge a new strategy which hasn't even really manifested itself on the ground yet.
Okay, on the domestic issues, you're here in Burnley today, you're moving on to Bradford later on. Is there some recognition from you and the rest of the leadership that your successes are going to be at the expense of the Labour Party rather than the Conservatives, say, in the South West or the South East?
Well, obviously we are fighting the election campaign across the whole of the country. And the extraordinary thing is, it's a great irony, by the way, whilst the Liberal Democrats are at the moment the smaller of the three main parties, we are the biggest party geographically, by a long way, because we are present in the north, places like Burnley, my own city of Sheffield, where the Conservatives are in effect non-existent, but also present in the south and the southwest, where Labour is non-existent. We are now the only party fighting this election, north, south, in cities or in the countryside. And I think that says something about the fact that more and more people are coming to support us. 1 in 4 people who voted the last general election, 1 in every 4 person who voted for the Liberal Democrats. That's 6 million people. And here in the northwest, we doubled the number of MPs we had at the 2005 general election. So yeah, you bet, the northwest is really important to us. It's an area where we're growing fast, and in places like Burnley and Bradford, I very much hope we will win, principally against the Labour Party.
You've said that you won't prop up a dying Labour government. Does that mean you're share power with David Cameron and the Conservatives?
No, I've been very clear that there are 24 million or so voters in this country. They're the kingmakers. You know, it's not for me, it's not for Nick Clegg or David Cameron or Gordon Brown to decide how this country is governed. I'm the leader of the Liberal Democrats, and as Democrats suggests in the word, I care passionately about our democracy. So I think it's really wrong to short-circuit the democratic process, to second-guess the British people until they've had their say. And that's why I'm saying, look, there's no point speculating about what might happen after the next general election. Look at what we believe, look at our values of fairness in the tax system, of a fair start for all children in the school system, a new economy where we don't spend all our time doing simply what the greedy bankers in the City of London say, and a new politics, sweeping out the rotten system of politics in Westminster. If you like that, if you believe in those values, if you like those policies, vote for it.
And what would you say to people like here in Burnley, for example? The Lib Dems have done well against the BNP. What sort of message do you have to people out there who are considering voting for the British National Party?
Well, first, of course, the BNP has a vile fascist ideology which spreads hate and division in our communities. But actually, in many ways, there's something else which sometimes I don't think is pointed out enough. They're useless. They're just useless. Hate doesn't create a single job. Hate doesn't train a single apprentice. Hate doesn't build a single affordable home. Hate does nothing. You know, hate is just shouting from the sidelines. That's what the BNP does. I think the reason why it's the Liberal Democrats who've beaten the BNP here in Burnley, and we've beaten them big, is because we've got onto people's doorsteps and said, OK, you're worried about housing. We'll do something about that. You're worried about the fact that the Labour government wants to close the A&E department in Burnley Hospital. We'll campaign against that. The BNP won't help you. The BNP are just going to spread hate, but they won't really help.
Final question. You became a father last year for the first time. I'm due to be a father for the third time later on this month.
I wasn't a father for the first time.
For the third time. So third
That's
child.
Unfair on my other two children, I think.
I bet it is. And I'm due to be a father again later on this month. What sort of advice could you give to up-and-coming parents who are struggling during this financial crisis in terms of balancing their work and life commitments? How do you, as a politician, balance that work-life balance?
Look, Miriam and I are just like any other parents who try and balance being with our children, you know, who we love so much, spending time together as a family, but also working hard, paying the bills. I think, to be honest, I think I'm like any other person in that position. You never get it right. It's a constant struggle. You often feel guilty that you're not getting it right. I think you've always just got to try your best. And most importantly of all, I think, just always show love and support for your children when you're together. That's the most important thing. And get lots of sleep if you possibly can.
Nick Clegg, thank you very much.
Thank you.